All right, last speaker of the day, very, very important, my friend Sara Herald. Guess what Sara does for a living? She's a lawyer. We need lawyers in our village. I have a lot of them, as you heard this morning. Sara works for, or is a partner at, Bills in Somburg, who's been my law firm for over 20 years. I always worked with a gentleman there, but I'm very happy that I'm meeting the women of the law firm because maybe that will change. But can you share with people about you?
So I have an interesting journey. I have been a lawyer for 45 years. I was a partner at my first firm before I was 30. And the first deal that I closed, thank you. I actually wanted to be a litigator, but they hired me to do corporate securities law because I had a business head. So this was when Miami was still trying to figure out how it wanted to be redeveloped. And by happenstance, we ended up getting the developer that won the bid to build the Hyatt Convention Center, which was the first major P3 project in the state of Florida. And I was assigned as an associate to work on it right out of law school. And at the end, I hadn't been out of law school a year. I think the partner, I still to this day don't know whether he had a nervous breakdown, an alcohol problem. I don't know. Because on the Saturday, this is before computers, I had 40 transfile boxes of documents. And I was kind of teasing him, like, oh yeah, I've been doing the grunt work and you're going to New York and doing the closing. And he said, I'm not going to New York, you're going to New York. And I'm like, what? I don't even have a ticket. No, you have to go. So I grab a ticket. I have no idea. I end up in New York. Fast forward, I'm with Saul Silverstein, Henry Silverman, who now owns, like Days Inn and Avis. My SAT, how do you figure out what something is, came out because I'm in rooms talking with guys and I had to figure out what F, F, and E was. That's how green I was. And the deal fell apart because the takeout lender walked away from the table. And I ended up with the mayor and my developer client and the construction lender going to Springfield, Mass. And talking a life insurance company back to the table before the bond syndicate fell apart. The deal was a $100 million deal in 1980, and I was 23.
Oh my gosh.
And at the closing table, they wanted the opinion letter changed, and I didn't have authority. I wasn't a partner, so I call back, and I'm like, do I have authority? It's an innocuous change. I think it's okay. And the partner that answered the phone said, well, where's so-and-so? And I was like, I have no idea. And he goes, what do you mean? You have no idea? I don't know. He hasn't been here all week. And they're like, what? And then the next thing I know, I'm on hold, and all the named partners in the firm are on speakerphone, like wanting to know why I'm there by myself. And I'm like, the bond syndicate falls apart in 45 minutes. It's a Friday in Wall Street. And I said, I don't know why I'm here by myself, but I need authority to change this opinion letter and get this deal closed. And I guess when I get back, we can talk about why I'm here by myself. That is called flying by the seat of your pants. But that was the firm's largest client, and they never used anyone else, which led to me. So I became a P3 lawyer when there was no such thing. There was no name for it. So I had to do a combination of finance, real estate, deal structuring, private placements, bonds. I had to do the whole thing, right? And so I did the Biltmore Hotel, for those of you that are familiar with the market. I did the Freedom Tower. I did most of the private development on the Port of Miami. But my pro bono work was all for abused and neglected children. So I left the practice of law in 1990, and I spent the next 30 years running companies. I ran a government agency. I was the COO for the East Coast of the United States for Regions Bank, and before that, Union Planners Bank, which included all the facilities, negotiations, and all the locations of retail branches. And so fast forward, and I also ran a child welfare agency that I had 1,000 children in custody, including the kids with HIV and AIDS. And so talk about the NIMBY factor. I relocated 600 teenage kids to group homes in the best neighborhoods. So if you think that they don't like old people, try moving 6 teenagers into somebody's neighborhood with house parents. So I have a very strange background. I went through bad divorce 7 years ago to the love of my life, my high school sweetheart, 49 years together. And unbeknownst to me, he had made some bad decisions and he wiped me out. So I was homeless, unemployed, and going through a divorce at 62. And now, so I went back to practicing law. Why? Because it was the fastest way for me to get back on my feet. So the good news is I do not spend any time thinking about it. It's in my rearview mirror. He shows up at my house on holidays. My friends do not understand how I will do anything for my children. And my children, 3 of my 4 children started out as my foster children. We were foster parents for 15 years. So I think there's a lot of resilience in this room, and I bring that to my work as a lawyer. So that kind of tells you that I'm a lawyer, but I think like a business person and a human being. And my firm is very generous to me in allowing me to do special projects. So look, recently I negotiated with the county to get 7 acres of land for the first affordable housing project for individuals on the autism spectrum. And it will be the first housing south of Lake Okeechobee for individuals that are adults living with autism. So. And I got 6 acres for a multifamily for kids aging out of foster care. So I'm allowed to do projects like that where I try to use all my skill sets. So I represent very high-end developers. I represent some of the biggest developers. Actually, I had never met Mrs. Motwani, but I love her 2 sons. Very involved, our firm is in the Miami World Center. And so I think I get the best of both worlds because I think what I bring to my clients is I don't actually think like a lawyer so much. You tell me what you want to end up with, and I can help you get there and help you structure it, help you get the financing. And our firm does everything, I like to say, cradle to grave. The firm does acquisitions in all asset classes. Acquisitions, land use, zoning. We have the largest environmental practice in the state of Florida. We do all of the environmental for 2 of the major builders cross country. They use only our firm for their environmental. And so we do everything and then help you get the construction financing, your construction documents, and then hopefully take you out to where you want to transact again, and then we help you lease up or sell. So, Beth and I were talking, and I said, I've been to this is my 3rd time at the seminar, and I love it, and I love the people I meet here. And I want you to think about lawyers as prevention, early intervention and prevention. How many people get a mammogram every year? Please tell me.
Okay. Everybody.
Everybody. Does anybody call over and say, how much is the radiologist? Before they go? No. Because are you going to cheap out on your doctor? No. I'm not telling you that you might not find different price points, but don't hire the cheapest lawyer because you put it in your spreadsheet. Natasha will show you how to put it in your spreadsheet, okay?
Or Nikki.
Most lawyers that work with developers will work with you so that you pay at closing. And if, God forbid, one of the things happens like happens to Shiloh, I've had that happen to clients, you ask them for a dead deal discount. If you don't know how to do that, I can teach you. Lawyers are very familiar with that concept. We want you to be with us. We want to be your trusted advisor throughout all your deals. So if a deal blows up, I'm okay with giving you a discount.
Can I go back and get a refund?
This is why you need to talk. And the other thing I want to say is in terms of when you talk about empowering women, the last 3 years there's been a gender pay equity survey done in Miami-Dade County. And one of the largest gaps in gender equity is in law firms. And you know why that is? Because in law firms, the people that make the most money are the people that originate business. And in that particular area, the good old boy network is alive and well. I am not telling you that you should hire any incompetent woman in any profession. But if you have a choice between a competent woman lawyer and a competent male lawyer, just remember at the end of the day, just like we're trying to empower one another here, try to empower female professionals and start getting the good old girl network going, okay? So I have female physicians. I'm old enough that there were none when I started. So all of mine retired early because apparently they make a lot more money than I do. So all of my original physicians are retired. So all of my new physicians, they have to be female and they have to use technology. And they have to be willing to text me or email me and send me digital stuff because I don't deal with paper. I'm old, but I'm not dead. So I want you to think next year, I am hoping to be the oldest first-time investor in the room, because that's my goal. Because I told Natasha, I want to do one of your deals, but I had no home. So I had to house myself first. And I have a daughter that's mentally ill, so I had to get her a place to live so she wasn't homeless. So I actually own 2 pieces of real estate, which is not bad when you consider I was in bankruptcy 7 years ago with, a husband who wiped me out. So that's not a bad clawback. So if I can claw back, I can help you claw back. So that's my story.
I'm all choked up here. Sara, I know you. I'm like choked up. I know you. You're a tough cookie. I did not expect this. Really.
People, I think, we have to be real with one another. If it can happen.
No, absolutely. But she's a really tough cookie, this girl. Who knows Sara? Tough cookie. I really appreciate the vulnerability and the transparency. I really do.
No, it's okay, because I think that part of our problem is we're not willing to say that, right? And I feel badly because we need women to succeed. The fastest growing group of people in poverty are women over 50, which is sick. If I had ever stepped out of the job market, I would be working at Walmart and living in affordable housing. I would not be where I am today. So, I think we cumulatively have an obligation to one another to reach back to the women behind us. And then, like Trez is, and I'm moving to Gladwin, by the way. I told her I'm going to be the first one in the room to be a resident at her place. So, because that's what I keep telling I have a son-in-law who I love more than life itself. And we've got a running joke because he always says, be nice to me, I pick your home. And I usually use the F word first, and then I say to him, no, because I will go to Montana where it's legal to off myself before you will pick my home. So I guess the point is that I think you need to seek out professionals that will share your vision, that will help you get there. Try to find people that use technology. Technology is your friend when it comes to pricing. So you might find a lawyer that's really cheap, but they don't have technology, and they're going to do your documents from scratch every time. For those of you, somebody in the room didn't know what an OM was. It's an offering memorandum, right? You can get yourself in huge trouble raising money if you don't do it correctly. These laws have not changed literally since 1933 and 1934, respectively, when they were passed because of the Great Depression. And always want your deals to go well, but nobody is 100%. And you get an investor that gets disgruntled because they don't make the money that they thought they were going to make, or maybe they claim you said something that you didn't say. That offering memorandum is your friend. It is your shield. And you have to do it correctly because that's your protection going forward when you're raising money, even if you're raising money from family and friends, okay? And an offering memorandum, once you do it for a client, then there are sections that have to be deal specific, but once you pay the money the first time, you're not going to do the same thing. You're not going to pay as much every other time. Same thing if you're a seller or if you're leasing property. And please, do me a favor. Do not use the terms, I don't care whether you're a seller or a buyer, or do not use the 2 words, standard contract. There is no such thing. The fact that something is on a pre-printed form does not mean it cannot be changed. It also does not mean it's correct just because it's in a pre-printed form. And also, please don't do what the men do, which makes me crazy. Frankly, this comes from men most of the time. Your document is so long. And I go, really? Okay, I tell you what, I'll change the typeset so that it's this big, like on a printed form, and I'll print it on long paper, and then it'll be shorter for you. So it cracks me up when everybody's like, oh, this is so much documentation. I'm sorry, it's written in a typeset that you can actually read without a magnifying glass. You can actually make changes to it. And don't let anybody bully you, especially if you're a first-time investor. Don't let anybody bullying you into signing a contract. Don't let anybody give you this nonsense that, oh, it's going to be gone. If it's gone, it's gone. Wrong deal and you're not ready. Don't let anybody force you into a deal. And for those of you that, I heard a bunch of people talking about diligence and losing deposits. When I represent buyers, I always build extensions into my contracts. and I don't do deals. I tell my clients, do not do deals where you do not have an advance right to an extension, because stuff happens. The bank doesn't fund on time. The title insurance, a lien comes up, blah, 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 1,000 times, right? And you're vulnerable when you're up against the wall and you're about to lose your deposit. So don't think about it out front. And sometimes a seller, now if I represent the seller, I'll let you have that, but it's going to cost you. Like I'll put it in that you have to pay an extension fee, right? If I'm the buyer, I'm negotiating like hell that there's no extension fee. You're getting your purchase price. You should be so thankful.
Partnership docs, as important as the OM.
JVs are very, very critical, okay? People hate it. I think JV agreements are like people negotiating prenuptial agreements. But I love you. He's my friend. I can't have him sign this. We're best friends. Well, I trust him. I trust her. We've been friends forever. This is a handshake deal. I'm like, it's a handshake deal, right, until somebody pulls out a gun and threatens you with litigation. So again, this is what I call early intervention and prevention. You do your JV agreement, and your lawyer's going to make you talk about things that you don't want to talk about. It's kind of also like when you go to do your will. Who's going to get your children? Oh my God, I can't even think about that, right? So a JV agreement's going to say, what happens if you die? Do you want to be partners with her kids? Do you want an option to buy them out? Those are the kinds of questions your lawyer should be asking you, and those are the kind of tough decisions that you should be making up front. You don't want to be the one that we were just discussing a client, major client in Miami. The client is from a foreign country, but doing major development in Miami. And it was actually a woman-led company, and she dropped dead suddenly at 53. And a 20-year-old and a 23-year-old now own $1 billion worth of assets that they have no clue. And they've got hundreds of employees, and nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody. Why? Because there was no plan. And that's from somebody that had plenty of money to pay the right people to get a plan. So don't be afraid of spending the time. And if it's your first JV deal, don't underestimate the amount of time that you may take to get to that decision. But once you've done a JV agreement, it's much easier, right?
And you're paying for the first JV document is very expensive, but you're going to use it for your next 5 deals. There will be updates, but don't cheapen out on the JV document, because that could make people not want to invest with you.
And don't cheap out on professionals.
Yeah.
You know, when you were saying you walked away from Kimley Horn, my environmental guys, the first thing that I do when I'm representing somebody that's buying and we're in diligence and the seller says, oh, I have a phase 1, I walk straight to my environmental guys, I throw the phase 1 down, and I say, is this worth the paper it's written on? And they look at the name of the firm and they say, no, tell them to get a new one. It's not worth the paper it's written on. They know that some firms pencil whip these documents, and you cannot afford to have an environmental mistake.
I did an anchor lease. I had a friend in the community, owned way more shopping centers than me, and he said, oh, I've got this great new lawyer. She's in North Carolina, super cheap. Don't forget about bills in. You should hire this lawyer. And I trusted this person, owned way more shopping centers than me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do an Aldi lease, and I'm going to use this person. It was so bad that I had to go back to Bilzen and say, I am so sorry, can you please fix this? So not only did I pay her, but then I went back to the qualified, more expensive firm to fix it, because it was a disaster. And this was a person I trusted, and she had done a ton of, and it was a woman, and I love that. I'm like, oh, let me go use a woman. This is great. It was unfortunately a disaster.
I mean, you shouldn't go, it's just like you wouldn't go to a cardiologist if you had a foot problem, right? You don't go to a PI lawyer that is your best friend from college to do a purchase agreement any more than you would hire me to be your PI lawyer, right? It's like that. So, just get qualified professionals and make sure that you do your diligence up front. Be generous with yourself on your diligence periods if you're acquiring. I like 120-day diligence periods.
But are you seeing that?
Yep. right now, with the market the way it is, the biggest thing that's happening right now is that the sellers want to sell, the buyers are backpedaling because of the market and the pricing and the capital markets and the interest rates. So what's happening is I just did the fourth one, extension of the diligence period. Why?
Yeah.
Because the buyer doesn't want to go hard and the seller really doesn't want the buyer to walk away.
Right.
So they want them
They're
to
kicking
stick
the can.
around to see. So it depends on what the market is. 2 years ago, coming out of COVID, I could not even get people to do a diligence period. They'd come from New York. They have no clue what they're buying. No. We need a purchase agreement today. No diligence period. We're going hard tomorrow. We'd like to close in 25 days. That's when I write very nice emails that say, I told you this, and this, and you said no, and no. That's the proverbial CYA
Right.
for a lawyer, right? So, but now people are like, okay, the interest rates are what they are. We got to rethink this. So you're seeing a lot longer diligence periods, and sellers are being a lot more flexible right now because of the way the markets are. So you have to, you got to read the room.
So thank you, Sarah.